Hi, it's Graphic Blades. Thanks for joining me again. I've got a review now of some 3M Cubitron 2 abrasive belts. Those who aren't really keyed up on the different specifications of the belts, I'm going to try and zoom in a minute to a board that I've done for a little bit of a drawing to give you clues to the difference in the alignment and the actual grain structure. I'm going to try and link a few videos in order to give you further information on it. Basically, the trick with this is because the actual grains are like little fat Doritos, look like little tiny pyramids. When they self-fracture off the top, they actually give themselves a new cutting edge each time. So it's, you know, they may be more expensive to buy in the first place, but because they continually shear off and give themselves a new cutting edge, and then you get less spill actually getting in the way and then clogging the belt up, it runs cooler as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut away to a little bit of a drawing to give a bit of a clue, and then we'll start doing some grinding with various tasks, and with each different way that I'm using the grinder and with each stage that I'm doing within making a knife. You know, I'm a knife maker, so that's what I'm going to be showing. The pros and cons and the problems that could come up, and where Cubitron should be outperforming the average or other competitors' belts. So quick blast over to the drawing board and I'll give you a bit of a clue as to what these little things look like. Right, so basically, little drawing here. The average abrasive belt is, great pointer, right? The average abrasive belt is more like a little pebble, and it's bonded to the flexible belt. And what happens is, as it cuts, whatever path it'll be, because of however the alignment of that tip of whatever that size that pebble is, will be a random path that it'll cut. Plus, because the face is quite random, is quite irregular, you'll end up with spill gathering up in front of it. Now all this does is increases the heat at this point and actually on the grit itself, which will then transfer into the belt. That's what happens on most abrasive belts. Things gather up in front. The path it cuts is not as particularly even, because you don't know what way the grain is aligned and what part of the face is actually cutting, and you don't know as it wears what's left of the tip as it's cutting. Whereas a Cubitron 2 is more like a big fat Dorito or a Dairy triangle, and the tip, generally speaking, is upmost. So they're actually bonded down by the base, and I mean, it could be slightly out of line, you know, like that, but it's the actual tip that is the contact point with the material that's getting ground. So there's more chance of an even grain. Now this here is only a 36 grit, okay, but because it's quite an even grain, it looks quite clean. If this was really random, it wouldn't have that lovely brushed satin appearance, and that's what's very useful for knife makers or stainless fittings. To give a nice even pattern is very advantageous, and that's what these things apparently are able to offer, because the tip is pretty much lined up all the time up in the air as it's bonded to the belt, and because it's cutting slightly more evenly, you're getting less of that spill in the front. I also noticed there's more air gap between each of the grains. Actually, these grains are really piled into a belt, but these are a little bit more space between them. So more space, more air. So it's all running cooler. And then, if you have a look at I'll say the other way around. So this would be the face that's to the belt. That would be a brand new abrasive grain on a normal sort of abrasive belt or a cutting disc, and as it wears down reasonably flat, okay, now you got this, you know, big face that's going to be caught here when it's getting onto the material that you're cutting. So the more surface there is cutting, the hotter it's going to get, and the more it's going to gather up spill. Whereas Cubitron 2, as it cleaves off, you get a microfracture, which then makes it like a neat plateau, and you end up with less surface area, more of a cutting tip, yeah, and you know, more gap. Can you imagine there's more gap here because of all this space, because there's a pyramid stuck up in the air as opposed to a big lump of rock. I mean, what would that be? That would be just getting in the way, wouldn't it? Gathering dust and everything. But here, because it's a pyramid, it's allowing spill and air to go through. So that's why, technically speaking, it runs cooler. So that's a quick guide as to why the difference between a Cubitron 2 and a normal sort of belt. I'll try and zoom into an actual belt and you can see the little chips actually bonded onto the fabric belt. Right, now as close as I can get with the little lens I've got. Here is a ceramic belt. Here's more of an economy zirconia belt, and here's a Cubitron 2. And if you get really close, you should be able to see the little pyramids stuck up with their tips up in the air. Whereas the Zirc belt, it's like pebbles on the beach, and they're all just laid randomly and coated into the belt. And it's a bit similar with this ceramic. It's got more of a sharp tip to it, each grain. So that's the sort of difference. And the plan is, with the alignment, or always tip up, it cleaves the top off of the triangle more evenly, and thereby gets better wear, and it runs cooler. Now the thing that's important to me is how well the actual chips are bonded to the belt, because on a few tasks I'll get through into a minute, if you have a brand new belt and you drive a flat piece of steel in and you knock the grit out of the belt before it's had a chance to cut, you actually lose, you know, a lot of the life of the belt, because you're smashing the chips off. Apparently the bonding on the Cubitron is so good that you get less, you know, you can imagine that the grains actually getting removed before we've had a chance to cut it. So let's get going. I'll do a few tasks, and I'll explain to each thing what I'm doing, do some comparisons for cutting rate and temperature as well. Okay, now I get my blades cut by a laser and then heat treated in a factory, and that allows me then to have quite a technical heat treat stage done that would be virtually impossible in a garage as a partial bainite. So what that means is it's a 400-degree stage post heat treat. So they come to me pre-hardened. So the life of my belts is really critical, because these things are not come annealed like a lot of people do with stock removal. So the first thing that I need to do when I get my blanks is I need to clean them off. Now that's a flat grinding or a surface grinding stage, and it's very critical to have an even wearing belt, so I get a nice even finish, satin finish, in order that when I scribe the line, because I want it to be flat, it's absolutely in the middle of where I'm doing the plunge lines. Alright, so I should be using 3 different belts for 3 different blanks. As I say, I'm going to do the flat grinding or the surface grinding first. It's more of a flat grinding stage. Very critical, again I've got to say, it's got to wear evenly so I get a nice flat, nice satin that'll come and give me benefits later on. I then put the profile lines of the blade on. For a pretty well new belt, I go in that way. Okay, now this is what I need a good bond of the ceramic grit onto the belt, because when you're going in like that, what you don't want is the belt losing its grit. Brand new belt, you know, you're paying good money for it, so that'll be a stage to really give a belt a hard time. I've then given the profile of the blade to the blank, and then I flip it horizontally, and then you end up with another problem, and that is, if the belt really wears fast, what you end up with is a belt with a worn section, because you've gone very specifically in one local spot horizontally. So that'll be a bit of a kicker for a belt as well. So nasty test, doing it in the way I'm doing it, pre-hardened blades. Let's see how they cope. So I'm going to get the blade set up. Right, welcome back. One thing I noticed straight off the bat with this belt is, because of the splice, they make these 2 specific sizes, and they got to bond one end of the belt to the other for your specific sizes. And on the splice, it depends on what the backing or the joint's going to be. Now on these, it's a little bit of blue sticky tape. And what you get is you get a gap in the grit, and depending on how strong the bond is on the back and whether or not it copes with tight radiuses, that's not too bad, but some wheels are quite small as to how well that join will last, or whether as it goes round you get a bump, 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 bump feeling on your blade as you're going around as the belt's spinning round. And the other thing is the skill of the person making it on whether or not that belt wobbles when it tracks. So a brand new belt, let's just see how this one works to start with. Start it off slow, just so I can track it. And yep, you've got that little bit of an oscillation, which always makes things interesting if you were trying to do a plunge line. So let's turn you around, and this is indicative of whether or not your guy making the belt really knows what he's doing. So he gets what he pays for. And I've got a few threads sticking out the sides here, so that's pretty much tracking that. Is it moving? Right. Budget zirconia belt. Pre-hardened 59 watt wheel ball bearing steel, partial bainite, full speed, and let's just see how it surface grinds this. Right, and what's happened there is the belt is stretched, and all of a sudden it's not going to track right. A bit too much pressure and it couldn't deal with it, so it's stretched a little. So be ready for that. And that is about as hot as I can take on the back of the flat. Yeah. So that's running hot. Not too bad if you're only doing one or two, but what you don't want is to lose the epoxy off the platen to the actual rest, because I've bonded a new carbide platen on there. So it's nice if that doesn't get hot. And I say, not even done one blank yet, and that's already, that's too hot to virtually touch. So there's the belt after doing two sides of the blank, and there's the blank. There's no point going too far. This is just literally to have a nice clean surface to scribe my blade profile on, because in a minute it's going to be going like that on a work rest, so it's going to get scratched up again. But once I know that I've got this even, it'll just be a quick 1-2 after a few more processes to get that finish back again. But say I'm not going to get this to a mirror finish now, because it's only going to get scratched up putting the actual blade profile on this blank. But there it is on a zirconia belt. So that's only one use. Still feels, well, there's me rubbing my fingers on it, so it's probably lost a fair bit of its life. So it's on with the second blank, and the green ceramic belt over there. Right, let's cool that down a bit. All's fair in love and war. Also thing to consider is the backing of the belt as to how much crud and rubbish comes off the back and ruins your platen profile, because you can actually get build up and it ruins your your blade bevels. So you've got to keep your platen pretty clean. That's pretty hot. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take a break, go and have a cup of tea and come back and allow that to cool so the next belt gets a fair shout in terms of temperature. Okay, so it's cooled down now, so in all fairness to this next belt, once again it's spliced, so there's a join, a little bit different this one, got a big clear sort of adhesive strip on the back, but there's quite a gap, so you might get a bit of a sort of dip sort of juddering feel, but let's see how it tracks. Get it balanced, start it off slow. That's a nice start. Hardly any deviation whatsoever. So here we go then. There we go. Put the grip on his face. Nearly done. Nearly. Next one. Okay, so pretty much done. Dry it off. Make sure that one goes in a different place so there's his glitch. And this is what the belt looks like. And well, we could do 3 times
more easy. Yeah, you could do three. I reckon do 3 more blanks on that belt before it got as hot as what that zirconia one did. Right, so I'll change the belt and let it cool down again onto the Cubitron 2. Yeah, that's pretty cool now. Right. I've labelled them up with a Dremel so we know which is which. Right, let's see how this one tracks. Compressing there. Oh, okay. That's it then. Here's the pattern. It's a 3M Dremel mark on the back side of it. And that's what it looks like. So, 2 cleaves off of there. And some bit marks. Right, next stage. Just thought I'd do this a minute. That's gone up 1 and a bit degrees. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Okay, welcome back. I'm going to be doing the profile of the blade now, the actual blade shape, using the grinder that way on. Okay, so this is quite nasty for the belt, to be honest, because it'll really test the bond of the grit to the belt, it'll test the join, and obviously heat as well. So what I'll do is I'll do an infrared temperature sensor thing around about there, before and after it's actually profiled the main bit. Obviously you'll see how long it takes to do it. It should be quite cool now. So between 20 and 21 degrees. Okay, so let's see what it's like when I've finished. I will be using a push stick to get more dried into it. I'll give an impression of just how much grit comes off, because this is quite nasty. So I'm going to use the push stick and give the same amount of pressure with each blank that I use. There's the main tip of the blade and then a little bit at the end before I do the pommel. But anyway, let's get going on that. This is with the Zirconia budget belt. Let's check its tracking. Something like that. I imagine I might have to tension it up again after it might get a little bit slack. Up to 30. 39 on the top. About 30 up to date. Okay, welcome back. Should be cool now. Yeah, back down to about 20 degrees. And this is now the ceramic one. Ceram. Let's get going on this one. Start tracks. Okay. Right, put that off. And time for Cubitron. Okay. That's cooled down now. So, check the tracking.
full speed. Well, I got absolutely covered in it. So obviously I've lost all the tips. Can you see the bucket? Wow. Lost. So it doesn't like that from you. So I lost all the fronts. Oh well, keep going. All the tops of the triangles. Like 29. So yeah. Well, I got absolutely covered in the tips of the grit. They've all come off. It doesn't actually. So let's see how it performs now that it's lost all the tops of the triangles. But I absolutely showered in red grit. The bucket's all red. So you need a really good pair of goggles the first time you go on it with a Hubie, because all you're going to do is nick the tops off. Now, obviously it's just the tips that it's lost. So let's see how it goes with the next stage, which is one of the nastiest things for belts, and that's a horizontal grinder. Okay, so it's in a selected place to see how it wears in one specific spot. See you in a bit. Okay, so now the grinder's flipped over 90 degrees, and I'm going to be using this horizontally. This is a really nice way of using an abrasive belt to get sweeping grinds. Let's have a look. Let's get the Zurich one. To be able to go like this on exterior curves is really cool, and you get an interior curves by using the profile of these idlers here in order to give yourself the shape of the blade. So it's going to be used here. The disadvantage of this is that only that section of the belt gets worn out, and so all this will be pretty fresh, but that point there will be worn far more. So when it comes to doing blades and plungers and stuff, you've got this dead space there. So it's just seeing how each one reacts and seeing how big a trench I'll get by going around the outside of this blade on each different belt. Okay, tracking should be alright. It's wobbling a little bit. Okay, you can't really see a trench. If you put something across there like a piece of wood, you might notice that it's not actually abrading quite so much where the blade was. The reason I need to do this is because this is laser cut out. There's this draft angle on the blade, so I'm just trying to square it all up a bit. But anyway, that's the zirconia one. It's on there. Cool. The belt looks alright. Good zirc. Sort of finger warm. Right, next belt. Oh, ceramic belt next. Ceramic. It's pretty much done. I can see a brown line. Might be able to catch it. Just visible where the blank was getting used on the belt. So there's a mark on there. Visible there, I think. Actually see it. Yeah. Whoa. Hard to track. The light's been a lot tauter. It's very difficult for me to get the tension this way around. So, it's a bit stiffer, this one. Hang on. Rough pressure. Gentle. Feel that. bit more oil. Well, I could feel the difference, that the far less pressure was needed for me to see that it was going to cut exactly the radius I needed on that inner turn there. Yeah, it felt like, let's say, half as much pressure just to get the same amount of launch and cut. So that's less fatiguing, because you imagine doing this 5 blanks in a day and your fingers and your stance and everything pushing this, just exhausting. That was physically, I could actually feel that needed less pressure being pushed in. So that's cool. That's still cutting, but it looks more worn than the green one. But obviously, it's all it's done is it's lost the tops. Right, that was a marked difference. I say that's why you don't go too good on the finish, because it's all the blade moving backwards and forwards. I scuffed it up, but you can tidy that up. Right. Next stage. Go clean it up again. I'm going to go down the grits to give a reasonable finish on the blade, and of course this is now where you find out whether or not the lack of evenness across the belt comes into putting the surface finish now back on the flat of the blade. See, I'm scheming, yeah. So I've done all that work there, and obviously in the middle doing it vertical, and now I want to see if it'll put a nice flat finish back on the blade just prior to putting the bevel on. There's one disadvantage to some belts which have one direction that they can be used. As it wears, you lose the directional indicators. So what you've got to do is put it back on in some way so you can see which way to put the belt on. So I use a permanent marker like that, whereas on the ceramic belt, there's arrows going both ways, so this will allow you, so I haven't bothered doing it. You can go either way with this, which is fine. On these there are no arrows, so I can only presume that this is also both ways it can go. But on that one, with the blue one, on the directional arrow, you've got to go in the way that it says. It's probably to do with the way that it's spliced, or it might be the nap of the bits, the actual grain. But anyway, it's not funny when they let go of these things. So where's my arrow? There it is. Right, see if it goes black and white. Pretty good. Keep we're looking. Right, there we go. See, the middle is worn. So let's see how long it takes to get that even. Now the trick would be to put a new belt on again.
Now obviously this comes from years and years of frustrating belt grinding, where you're down to your last 2 or 3 belts and you've got to use the belt that you've already used on another task, and you got that damn worn section down through the middle. So anything surface grinding or trying to do it flat grind, which is completely different. Surface grinding cleans the surface off and gives you an even coating. Flat grinding gets it as flat as the platen can be. And you can't get it flatter than the platen if the belt is not even. So that gives you a clue as to how much wear there was in the centre of that belt in order to get back by going backwards and forwards across the belt, using the less worn sections on the left and the right to get back to a reasonably even finish. Now what I'll do is, just to save time on this and other ones at later stages, I'll just use a fresh ceramic belt now that I've got these here in order to get the finish back. But that's a clue as to what you've got to fight with in terms of local use on the position of the belt and how well the belt actually wears or not. So that's the zirconia one. Took a fair bit of time, but got there in the end. Right, green ceramic next. And while we're at it, pretty warm. Pretty warm back. But I'm just going to carry on and get the green one on and on our way. It says 32 degrees, but that's a lot blinking hotter than 32. That's a touch hot, that is. Right, ceramic.
through that. Yep. Right. Just in the middle. Light visible. There's a flat big patch in this middle. Yeah. Just a little bit there now. Put the extract on there, mate. Quieter. Yeah, that's done it now. Is that a section there I've got to? Just there. I think that's a sustain one, isn't it? Yeah, that's done. Right. Let's have a last at what it's got. A few degrees hotter, but it feels a lot hotter than that. Pretty warm. Right, so that's a ceramic green. Cubitron 2 next. pretty much it. What I'll do now is, just for speed's sake, and to show a Cubitron 2 brand new again doing a surface grind, the first two blanks I'll put a new 36 on, just for speed. That's that one. Bear in mind that's also done another side of that blank. So, Cubitron 2, and this is just to finish the sides off. Just for speed's sake. So that was the ceramic, and that did the least ground side. This was the side that was down on the actual work plate and getting shifted around. So that's now going to get all on this tape. Right, straighten up the camera. So what that exercise is just not really shown or whatever. It's if you had a set of new belts and you only used a fresh belt for doing the surface finish, you wouldn't come across that problem quite so much. But if you're down to the last couple of belts, okay, or you've got a big batch and you haven't got that one new one, you've got to struggle through with a belt that's worn, and the more uneven it's worn, the more hard work it is trying to get finishing jobs, and the surface finishing crops up in various stages of making a blade. There's this initial cleanup in order to mark it. There's getting an even finish in order so when you mark your centre scribe line. At some point you've got to get it cleaned up after you've beveled it so you can put your maker's mark on it, and then you've got to finish it again. This could be hand done, and then at some point you've got to get it finished before you put handles on. Now whether you machine it or do it by hand, that finishing stage crops up quite often through the make, and you really need that beast of a blade that's got an even wear pattern across it, or you're going to have a hell of a time trying to fight using sides and sides to get that even finish, or everything's going to just rear its head later on in the job. So obviously if you've got a batch of 6 blades
the first time you use that first one, you do your surface or your flat planing, and as soon as you turn one into it's worn in the middle and you've used it on its side, then for me it's these belts here. These are generally ones I use horizontal grinding. I've stuck that one out of the way just so I don't get mixed up with belts. But could you see the track patterns in this? Okay, these are belts that have been used on horizontal or worn out through the middle. Okay, so once you've got that wear pattern on the blank, once you've got that wear pattern on the belt, you need to keep a belt that's not been used in a fixed location, like you haven't used it for in the middle doing stock removal, and you haven't used it horizontal, of which you'll only ever use one little spot. But the ceramic one still got it back less because it only lost the tops of those vertical triangles. So that's part one. Thanks for joining me again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to collate all this together and come back on the next day. So that's the initial stages of making a blank and a blade. Next stage is putting the bevels on. Okay, so we're going to mark the center scribe line, and then we're going to use the same belts, and again that uneven wear pattern now is going to rear its head when you put it to the blade, because it's going to grind high there, not quite so much in the middle. Okay, and you'll be trying to battle that all the way through, and as you obviously catch the corner, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a tip for not hitting off the tops of the grits on any grade of belt, so you actually make belts live a little bit longer when you start doing something hitting a 90-degree edge of a blank. Okay, so a tip for that coming in the next installment. Thanks again to BND Abrasives for sending the belts through. Already it's blitzing the zirconia belt, and against the green, the other ceramic belt, it's got points where it's a lot easier in a few cases. It was a lot less pressure on the horizontal grinding. It fought back to get an even grind flat after being used in the middle. So what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to take them to a 120 finish using the ceramic belts from BND. On the other one I'll just use a Zerk in order to give an even pattern, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up in a jig, and we're going to take the same amount of material off of each blank with the respective belt, and then get a comparison as to how it wears, how hot it is, and just seeing how it's going to perform. So thanks for joining me again. It's going to be another part of this. Scott from Wessex Blades with Cubicron True review.